You as always. And Dr. Peter Partey Anti, thank you for connecting with us. And I know the connection is stable now. First of all, I want to find out from you. This is a question of, or a matter of policy, which over time we've seen it now invoke a question of law. How then do we deal with this matter, with this opportunity that has come up again, once and for all, so that we don't come to this point again in a different form of a religious situation in a particular senior high school having to be settled in court?
Yeah, Alfred, thank you. Thank you very much. Good evening to you and your viewers. I think that there's something that I always say that in this country we don't solve problems because most of the things that we continue to deal with are issues that keeps happening yearly. And one of them is what you are talking about, which is the religious challenges that some of our schools are facing. This issue keeps coming up. Fortunately for us, we had an opportunity to nip it in the bud. When the Achimota incident came, I was thinking that the Ministry of Education and the Ghana Education Service would have used that opportunity to develop wide, far-reaching policy to really address the challenges that this poses in our educational institutions. Of course, we were not able to do that. The court ruled. I'm informed that an appeal was filed. I don't know whether it was pursued or not, but the Ghana Education Service and the Ministry of Education didn't use that opportunity to look at the broader issue of religion within our educational system and ensure that policies are streamlined, because around that same time there was this conversation around the hijab that most of the students were complaining about in certain schools. And I was thinking that we had a very brilliant opportunity to have dealt with this in a comprehensive manner to ensure that this issue doesn't come up again. Unfortunately, this year we had an experience with this same hair issue that got, was all over the airwaves, and we still had to discuss it. So for me, the way forward is simple. Fortunately, this issue is at the Supreme Court now. Someone has filed this for some time now, and the Supreme Court is preparing to give a verdict on it. I'm thinking that as soon as the Supreme Court verdict comes, the Ministry of Education would now take this verdict and then use it to develop a broader based kind of policy that would be used or implemented in all our senior high schools, taking into consideration all the angles and everything in between to enable us have a conducive school environment that promotes teaching and learning. And I think this is the best that we can get out from this ruling that is supposed to be given by the Supreme Court, because of course that is our apex court, and whatever they say, the lawyers will tell you constitutes law. So whatever the outcome will be a best opportunity for the Ministry of Education to use that to develop a broad policy that would guide religion, dressing, haircuts, and everything in between within our secondary education system. And I think that we should be able to end this kind of back and forth discussion and all that after that particular process is carried out. Yeah.
I see. But then again, let me establish, is that to say that there's no existing framework or policy to, as it were, address such issues? That's why it always has to be a question of law for the courts to answer?
Well, what I know is that the various schools have their rules and regulations. So the point is that it's not uniform. So every school has its own guiding principles that students are supposed to follow. Okay. And those guiding principles are supposed to promote the culture of the school, to the kind of image that the school has developed over the years, and also to ensure that certain attributes, certain skills, certain practices are transferred to students for a period of time. So you go to some of these schools, they tell you that this is how we do things here, this is how we do this here. So that has been the practice over the years, that schools have their own ways of doing things. Those ways of doing things have not been harmonized by the educational system. Let me put it that way. So yes, you will see that the certain practices that are upheld in one school are upheld in another school. And and it's fine, because that gives you the kind of variety and where to take your world to, and also to keep the kind of image that the school has built over the years. So that is the practice, and that is why you will see that even though the Catholic Bishop Conference statement and the Christian Council statement seek to inform us that the church will continue to uphold their values within the mission schools, some of these mission schools allow certain practices to be carried out without strict preventive measures, or without preventing students from undertaking them, because that is the practice in the school. Again, some of these other schools do not allow some of these things to happen. So that is the differentiation among the schools based on their individual rules and regulations that guide them. So what I was thinking, and I think I made this point when the Achimota issue came up, was that the Ghana Education Service had a rare opportunity to harmonize these practices and then come out with a comprehensive policy on some of the things that seem to be, not uniform among the schools. Because in some schools, around that same time, there were issues of some schools that allowed students to keep a certain kind of haircut, and then in other schools, they were not going to allow that. So GES had that opportunity to harmonize some of these things, and then develop a comprehensive plan for the secondary education system. We were told that a committee was put up to think around this and then come out with a document in that perspective. We don't know how far that was, or how far that went to. But then, as it stands now, I doubt if that document was able to develop. Because if it was, then that document would have guided what happened this year.
Right.
Okay, and that is why I'm convinced that they didn't even pursue that.
Absolutely.
Because this year we had the same issue with haircuts,
True.
and then we were back to square one. Discussions
saying the
among
same
them,
things.
keeping it, don't keep it, the school environment and everything. We were not able to pinpoint to a particular uniform document that speaks to some of these things. And our reference point was basically the issue that happened with the Achimota student, and that ended in court. So you will see that all those who did that discussion were referencing the court's decision.
Yeah.
And that is why I think that the Supreme Court's verdict on this would be very, very important, because then we have a final say as to how religion should be handled in our secondary schools. And if that is done, then the ministry can pick on that and use that to develop a broader policy framework to guide most of the things that are not uniform among our senior high schools.
And I also, as I do appreciate your thoughts on this, Dr. Partey Anti is Executive Director of the Institute for Education Studies, IFES, one of the foremost civil society organizations in the education space in this country. Thank you.